Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome. I'm really excited. We actually made it to the end of March, as far as I'm concerned, for our Living Legacy series. So if you're here, type in the chat. Let me know where you're from. Let me know who's on. We are streaming a couple of places. I want to say hi to my YouTube family, hi to my Twitter family, my Facebook family. Hi, Overseer. How are you tonight? And so I'm just really excited about closing out this Women's History Month. I believe that this month, it really truly has been a blessing to me that we've been very intentional about making sure that we get voices, female voices, specifically Black and Brown women who have been impactful in their lives now and who are living legacies. And so I'm so excited about who are we going to talk to tonight. Tonight, I'm excited because we are closing out with millennials. And I like to call them the forgotten generation because the minute you say something about a millennial, people automatically have a stigma of what they think a millennial is and who they are. They already have like a stereotype. And so I was really excited when God gave me this series and gave me who to invite. Because you guys know, I don't just bring anybody up to this platform. If he ain't tell me to bring them, they're not coming. So I'm not starving for any platform at any stage. And so I'm just really excited that we have someone on tonight who is not only a millennial, she is a Black woman. She's a professional as well. She is single. She has no children. So I tried to make sure I kind of got everybody in the mix. So we did married, we did ministry, we did single parents, we did business professional women who had a husband and children. And so we are finishing off the month with our single millennial who has no kids, who can still, she doing it for herself. And so I'm just really excited. Thank you. Hey, Tremaine, how are you? So I'm just really excited that she gets to share tonight because we can all learn something from each other. I'm about 15 years older than her. But I'm just really excited because I know that when I walk away tonight, I am going to learn so much. And actually something that's going to put me on the path for the rest of the year, because as you guys know, I do mentorship, I do coaching, I do all of those things, but you can't really do effective mentorship and coaching without first connecting to the next generation. And so I'm just really excited. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. The numbers look good tonight, so I'm really excited to see you guys. So I am going to bring her up. Her name is Leja. I'm going to let her introduce herself because I love when people introduce themselves. Hi, Leja.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Hey, everyone.
So please introduce yourself to our audience and tell them why you're a living legacy.
Wow. Okay. I'm sure like other people, we just like talking about ourselves. But like she said, my name is Leje Stephenson. I am a social worker. And some things about myself, essentially professionally, what I do, like I said, I'm a social worker, concentration in leadership in organizations and communities. I work in education. I'm an educator as well. Basically, I help provide social and emotional support to stakeholders in education, and then training them to implement social and emotional work with their students. That's fun. I love what I do. I'm helping educators and changing their minds and essentially changing the school and policies. What else? I'm in ministry. I love the Lord. I'm in ministry. I work. Because I want to, and I love it. So that's the thing about it, working around the clock. I'm in ministry. I'm also currently a student. I started in January, my Doctor of Education. So I'm getting my EDD and my concentration is organizational leadership. What else? Oh, I forget.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just so excited because when she said she was getting her doctorate, I didn't know she didn't tell me.
Oh, yes. I didn't tell anyone. My mom ended up putting it out there. She forced me to have to say something. But, that's a journey in itself. So, and trying to keep my own anxiety. I was like, I'm not saying anything until I'm like, oh, semester's almost done, y'all. Almost to the finish line.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm trying to think. I do a lot. I'm in a sorority. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm currently serving as the vice president of my chapter, in the chaplain. So I'm, wow.
You are busy.
Yes.
You are busy.
So when you was like, no kids, I'm like, yeah, no kids. And my work is my mini children, I suppose. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I love community work. I love serving. I literally been serving since I was 3 years old. No exaggeration. So my favorite quote is by Albert Einstein: "Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile." And that's just how I live my life. That's what I live my life by. So
yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, y'all can tell by I'm so excited that she in her doctorate program. Not that I pushed her. Truth be told, her mother kind of pushed me. So it's like, so, I guess she figured if I be pushing, I'm pushing everybody. So her mother like, you get a push, you get a push, you get a push. So I'm just really excited about that or whatever. I'm also excited to hear that you're the vice president and the chaplain of your chapter, because you're not a neo anymore.
Sure, but I'm coming out of that.
But I'm just really excited. A neo just basically means, you guys, that she's new to her organization, and she's over a year or so now. So so we're gonna accept that and keep her out of that neo ship. So I'm gonna ask you the first question.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm just impressed by all that you're able to do, everything that you're balancing and loving it. It's not like you're doing stuff that you don't like. You are really choosing and being very intentional about where you're spending your time and how you're doing things. And so I wanted to talk to you about, specifically, as I stated previously in the conversation, I'm about 15 years older than you, and I'm so therefore considered Generation X, I guess. Yeah, Generation X, I'm considered. And I wanted to talk to you about, what do the older generations, my generation and even those older, what can you tell us about you growing up now being a Black woman?
Wow. Okay, so one of the main things, and I often have this conversation, a conversation similar, is just like the difference in opportunities that we have now. A lot of times growing up, you'll hear, well, you need to get you a stable job and start a family. Get you a man with a stable job and start a family. And now, as a millennial, we have so much access to things now. We actually have access to be able to literally go after our dreams and pursue our passions. And we don't really worry about some people about just settling down. But we really have a lot of goals and we're super driven. And that's where our focus is. People will leave their 9 to 5 in a heartbeat, millennials, and be like, I'm just going to take a step out on faith. So that's one thing about millennials, except that our path looks different and the time is different than it was back then.
You said that. I really do, because, I didn't get married until I was 34. So when I was your age, when I was 29, 30, although I was in a different generation, I felt the same way. I felt like there was so much opportunity out there and I needed to hustle before I got married, because I kind of felt like once I got married, my hustle was going to dwindle. And I didn't want nobody telling me if I could take a job or telling me if I could quit because they got on my nerves and I'm going to go start my own. I wanted to have that autonomy for myself. I didn't want to be dictated to. And so the fact that you guys who don't know, I'm an HR professional, so I understand and agree with, because I have millennials in my office all the time. Listen, this ain't for me no more. I was here 2 years. Y'all not going to promote me. And so I started my own, or I'm going over here because you don't provide professional development. So the fact that you mentioned about being focused and driven is definitely something that I see is truly it's truly an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see so many people in my age bracket who are in their 40s and 50s who don't have that drive. And I don't even think it has anything to do with age. I think it's the fact that we were taught different.
Yes.
We were taught that you got to get somewhere and you need to stay there,
Right.
and get the pension and get this and get that, versus millennials are so fearless.
Yes.
You guys are really fearless. And where does that come from?
Whew. That is that. I guess we're exposed to so much. I feel like the prior generations, they saw a lot, and I feel like right now we also see a lot. We see a lot, but also we have a lot of people. We have social media. So even if we're in one place, we see what other people across the world, what they're doing. So we have like that source of inspiration. It's like, well, if this person is doing it, I can do it. Or some millennials' motives are purely generated off of what they see on Instagram or what they see on Facebook. And they're like, you know what? All right, well, I'm going to start this. I see this person was successful by starting this type of business. Oh, let me just go and try it. Or, oh, I'm pretty, I'm handsome. I could start just being an influencer. Like it's literally things like that kind of drive people just like, oh, okay, let me just start this, try this.
Wow. And honestly, it's really working. If you look at statistics, like there are millennials who make more money than their parents.
Yes. 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 No, it's so true. And that's the other thing, even going back to when I mentioned, like, getting a job and settling, right? Getting a city job or things like that. We literally have the opportunity to not be in that type of job and make more money and pocket that, and then say if something happens, like, well, I done made all this amount of money, so I'm sure I could find another job. But I think we're also passion driven. Like I've had the opportunity to, listen, when I was in college, my senior year, my father was like, here's money to go to the city and take these city exams. I took about 4, passed them all and did good, got called back. And I said, but this is not what I want to do. Wow. If I say yes to this, I'm going to be miserable, or I'm going to be satisfied for the moment because it's stability, but I'm going to be there just getting through. And I was like, no. Even like my history, my story, when I graduated from undergrad, I worked, listen, let me tell you, I went into undergrad. I was an adolescent English education major. My junior year, I was like, I always knew I wanted to work with youth. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I don't think I want to teach English. Like, that ain't it. I know what I want to do and who I want to do it with, the population, but that's not it. And then I went to a mentor. That's something else that's very important that we need from the generations before us. We need solid, consistent mentorship.
Solid and consistent. I need to write that down because I'm coming back to that.
Solid and consistent mentorship. I'll just note that. I remember going to my mentor. She was my dean at college, one of my deans, Dr. Gwen Ames. And I said, I need to change my major because this ain't it. And she goes, She was a person that everybody went to if you had a relationship with her. Whenever you were in a season of transition, you went to the doctor. And we went right to that little office, and she would guide us and tell us what to do. She said, you know what? Go into communications. You have an arts background. I did that. I went to communications in my arts background, and I said art therapy. And that was kind of how I started kind of easing my mind, say, you know what? Maybe social work around those lines will be what I would do. Graduated, I was working in medical credentialing. I don't know what to say. Working in medical credentialing, but happy because guess what? The rest of my friends was looking for they couldn't even get part-time jobs, but I was working in a full-time job, medical credentialing, getting the most money I've ever had consistently ever in my life. And there for about 2.5, 3 years. And I called my mentor again on a Saturday morning, like, there has to be more. I feel so unfulfilled. There has to be more. I was still doing outreach and stuff, doing ministry, teaching, like doing all the other things that I did. But I was like, I cannot sit here and stay here like this. She said, it was a Saturday morning. I'm waiting for the bus. We was going to a Donny Park trip with a church. And she said, she's on the phone with me. She goes, get your MSW. Wow. And that was it. I was like, oh, this is it. And that literally changed the trajectory of my life. A Saturday morning on the phone, annoyed, like there is more. And get your MSW. The applications close in a week. So when you get back tonight or tomorrow, do what you need to do.
Wow.
Did that, worked. I told my job, well, Tuesday and Thursday, I'm gonna have to leave early. Did that. And guess what? I got injured at work, was off, out of work, never went back, was on workers' comp, and was able to pursue my education full time and graduate early. I was like,
wow. You see how God orchestrates these things. And you was on workers' comp. Y'all know I do HR. That means she was getting a check. You was getting paid to get educated.
And then listen, I said, they was trying to get me to come back. I said, and I was really injured. I had to get surgery. So yeah, I was really injured, had to get surgery. But guess what? The only time I really felt pain was the first night of my surgery. After that, I was working through it, but I was able to go to school full time. I had my internship. Guess what? All my internships worked out. They were all in high schools, like I wanted. Like literally, favor was on it. I had to go through that surgery and get hurt. It was a reason.
Just for a moment, a light officially.
Listen, I wasn't bad though. That check was coming on through there.
I'm so glad you talked about, and this is why. First of all, and you guys, I didn't even orchestrate Leja being last. I just was kind of like, it's 5 Mondays in March. Which Monday you could come? And she was just like, I could do this one. But I'm so glad now that you're last. But it's such a bridge builder because you talked about the importance of mentorship. And this is one of the stereotypes that I really want people to understand. It's not that millennials don't listen, and it's not that they don't want help, but you got to be consistent and solid. And she mentioned that people are not. One thing I can say is millennials are not coming to you and you just give them the runaround. Or you just tell them what you think they want to hear. They really want something that is going to give results. Right. And so I'm glad that you talked about, listen, I knew I couldn't do it on my own. So I went to the person who was consistent for me. And each time she opened her mouth, you listened and you moved. And so that's why it's so important that us who are in these other generations who are older may avail ourselves to the younger generations and be consistent. Some of us, we can't provide sound advice and consistent advice because we all scrambled in our own heads. So they looking like, you still mad at your baby daddy? Because let's be facts. They like, you still mad at him? You still stuck in this? You not even doing what you want to do, but you want me to listen to you.
Right.
And that's the one thing I found about millennials. They like, oh, we seen your pictures on social media, but we know how you living in real life.
Exactly. We're realists. Like, wow.
They be knowing in real life. Like, it's amazing because when I sit with my millennial staff, it's really truly like, no, I know what they said, but let me tell you what I saw. Mm-hmm. And what they see is so insightful. Yeah. So I'm glad that you really talked about the fact that, one, you took a risk, because again, I think what we can learn as older generations from you guys is that it's okay to take a risk and it's okay to not know the answer. Yeah. just like Nike say, just do it.
Let's do it.
What's the worst that can happen? You're gonna fail, but then that means there's still something better. So I think that's something that, when I talk to millennials, when I talk to my millennial staff, I always ask, like, what do you think about this? Or how do you think this should be approached? Because their insight is so profound, because it's no limits.
Right.
It is truly no limits. So and I mentioned one of the misconceptions about millennials. Can you kind of talk to us about, because I know you hear it all the time. You're a millennial and people will probably talk to you like, you ain't going to say nothing because I'm older than you. So you got to respect what I say.
Right.
What are some of the misconceptions that you've heard about your generation?
It's funny that you said that, because one is that we think we know it all.
You ain't lived, you don't know.
Right. You ain't nothing but, you just 2 years old. Cut it out. And I think because this generation, we're a lot of us are intellectuals. Mm-hmm. So we've had the opportunity to pursue further education, to learn, right? Self-help as well. So we kind of like take that all in and utilize that as we move forward, and it kind of adds to our approaches in everything that we do. Like we read, we're intellectuals, so we can't just, we travel, we're exposed to so much more in terms of like traveling, the arts. Like we're literally all in the different industries. So I think that's one thing. So it's not like it used to be like, oh, well, I know it, I've done it. We're like, well, we've done it too. I've been there too. I mean, and not even being funny, think about it. Like I look back to last year in light of all that we were championing, right? Not just the pandemic, but also uproar of the social justice movements. Like, yes, it's been happening for years. But I think last year, in the midst of a crisis in itself, of a pandemic, we still rose up. Mm-hmm. Right? Hopefully they masked up when they rose up, but I know I did. But like we are now history. So I think that is something that's so important. Like we're taking everything that we're learning, our own experiences, and applying it to our everyday life and everything that we do. And like you said earlier, we're willing to take the risk and step out and just do it. But like I said, last year really was eye-opening. And I went out there to DC in August. Wow. For the anniversary for the March on Washington. And it was just like, wow, my father was not happy about it, but God covered it. God covered it. And
that's that risk taking y'all be doing.
But I was in awe. And I was just like, whoa, like this is my generation. Like we're on the front line, but also cross generations, right? Because we're marching with people that have been doing this movement for such a long time. And I think, like we mentioned, mentorship, like being able to connect, like, and watch those people that have been doing it. I think that's the biggest thing. The older generation not coming at us like, well, I've been there, I've done that, but saying, I've been there, and let me show you my journey. Let me take you down this path. Let me show you pictures of what happened, or let me tell you what went well. Let me tell you also, which they don't often want to do. Let me tell you what didn't go so well.
Exactly.
The transparency. Mm-hmm. That's what that's one of the things we really desire and need from the generations before.
Transparency.
Because
did you hear that? Transparency. They don't want the story that was passed down that's covering up and sweeping under the rug.
You don't want the taboo. We want what happened. And that's the problem. That's why some of the stuff that we're still dealing with is because of that. They weren't transparent with us. So now we're repeating cycles, but thinking that we're the first ones going through it. because no one wanted to open up and talk about it.
Ooh.
But I'm sorry, I'm just.
No, you go. I already told y'all. Y'all know my platform. We go with God. Whatever we do, we go with God. So you go on.
So I mean, yeah, I think that, you know, and now I was talking to a few friends, and we were talking about faith and, like, you know, being in ministry and in church, and I was just like, what are people looking for when they come back? And we said, what is our generation looking for when we come back? And we were like, transparency. Like, we've all been through a lot this year. It is also okay for you as a leader or whatever position you're in to say, I struggled. And guess what? You don't, like, and not put on that front, like, I have kept it. No. Like, we all struggled. So we need to see that person that's going to be authentic and honest and transparent and say that. That's what's going to draw us. Authenticity, transparency, that's what draws us.
Yes. So, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because especially, and you mentioned ministry and things as well, is that we're not going to live forever. That's first and foremost. So you have to tell the generations behind you how to get it right. That's where wisdom is supposed to come in. Yeah. The problem is that, like you said, everyone wants to seem like I'm the strong one and I knew what to do and I got it together. You know, let's be honest. The pandemic hit everybody hard. Whether you were personally affected, whether you were mentally affected, whether you lost someone. Exactly. It affected everyone in some type of way. There were times I literally had to get off of social media because I got tired of seeing rest in peace signs. Yes. It was people, some I knew, some I didn't know, but the whole impact of it really, truly had an effect on me because I'm empathetic. So immediately I start thinking about what's happening with people, what's going on with them and things of that nature. And so that's why I commend your generation for demanding transparency, because I know, and like I said, we're only 15 years apart, but even when I grew up, it was don't say nothing, don't ask, you know, and then if you did ask, you didn't get an explanation. It was because I told you so. And it never came back with well, this is what happens. And then when something happens to you, then it's like, oh, that happened to me too. But you never told me. And you never told me how to, you know, get through it. You never told me what to expect. It's just like, and I mean, and thank God you don't have kids. You're not a teenage mother or anything of that nature, but that's how generational cycles keep happening. Because it's like, don't go out there and bring home no baby, but you brought one home at 15, but because you weren't honest with how that happened to you and how to have your daughter mentally protect herself or physically, or even your son, then they come and repeat the same cycle. And then you say, well, I told you not to do it because I knew it was hard. But you never explained. You never explained. And we're in a generation now that I've seen, even dealing with my 8 and 6-year-old, it's not about me explaining everything, but when I say things, I know they want the answer from me.
Yes.
They don't want me to gloss over it. And even sometimes I don't even feel like explaining. And some of the things they be asking, I'm like, why are you asking me this? But I realize, because they have a question, if I don't answer it, somebody else is going to answer it.
Right. Yes.
And I don't know what answer they're going to give them. And it's the same thing with your generation. It's, if I don't answer the question for you, where are you going to get the answer from? The internet? YouTube?
Right. Friends.
Friends who ain't never been through anything.
Exactly.
So, and I'm glad that you're working with the next generation, even with you being connected in schools, and you're working with the administrators and the leaders who are teaching our next generation. And so how are you now? Because, you know, we have a bridge.
Right.
And now you're taking a bridge. It's like you're really, truly a multi-generational strategist. I done gave you a name. You better write that down.
Let me write that down.
But it's true, because you are truly taking you as a millennial, and because you don't mind asking the questions, it's okay, let me give these leaders, and y'all know leaders in the school districts are various ages. It's people who don't want to retire and they need to. And so you're teaching them how to connect to second, third, fourth teenagers. Like you're really truly bridging a gap toward in bringing the generations together. And I know you do a lot of team building, and I know you're getting your organizational development. You did some leadership. Can you kind of talk to us about now, how are you taking this and basically you're threading all of this together? Like, how is that working?
Well, so you mentioned kind of a little bit about the scope of what I currently do. So fun fact, so the work that I now do with the administrators, I was doing with the students in the classroom directly. And like I said, I've done like one-to-one counseling, group counseling, family supports. And then I was in the classroom teaching students, so like juniors and seniors, how to mentor freshmen.
Wow.
So like that's literally a lot of the scope of my work, mentoring people, guiding them, doing the social and emotional work with them for them to now do it with someone else. Transformational leadership. So some of the work that I do with the educators now is the same things, like realizing like, hey, before you can lead, and this is in any sphere, before you can lead, you need to deal with self, because you can't connect with anyone else. You can't guide anyone else. You can't direct anyone else until you know who you are as an individual, as a person, and know where your identity, where your identity lies, and what you've been called to do and things like that. So what I do in terms of team building, I tackle the individual first. The individual first. And I noticed a lot of times, like I'll be in spaces where teens are having conflicts and going at it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's break our own barriers first. Let's talk about the work we didn't do. Let's talk about the healing that we did not do individually that has caused us to put up these walls and set these boundaries. And then once you tackle that, then people start, oh, I'm not the only one that dealt with that. You experienced that too? You know, all of that. That starts happening. And then now you're authentically and easily connecting with the person next to you, because you're realizing like, oh, okay, I'm not in this alone. I don't have to heal alone. So that's a little bit of the scope of what I do. So one of the things that I wanted to do is take what I do secularly, professionally.
You take the church.
I was just about to say that. So I just about to say, what I want to do is open it up more for the church. I have done it for a few ministries so far. And they've enjoyed the process and the experience. I've done it for the Department of Probation. So, you know, it's kind of open up, but my goal is to really provide this for the church. Especially like you said, especially now, people are dealing with traumas that they know not of. And that's really what I want to do. I really want to take it to the church. And
let me tie this up in a little bow for you guys who are saying, well, what does this have to do with the church? I am so glad you asked.
Oh, I can't see the comments.
I'm so glad you asked, because you guys know by profession, I'm an HR director. So a lot of the team building and leadership and all of these things that she's talking about are things that we even do in the workplace.
Yes.
The ministry is the foundational place where you're supposed to work together in teams. Yes. So if you don't know how to work together, if you're not teaming properly, if there's no trust, if there's barriers and boundaries, then the work of the ministry can't get done because you're too busy.
You just made me think of something, of an example. So one of the activities that I do when I do my team building and professional development is something called compass points. And you might have heard it before. People may have heard it. I actually saw someone who's been to one of my sessions on here, so he probably could attest to that. Compass points. So basically it's 4 compass points, and it talks about who you are in group work. So if you're a northerner, that means you're a get it done, get to it person. That's the person you go to. If you need something done real quick, they don't have time for conversation. They just like, let's get to it. Then you have your westerner, which is a very detail oriented person. Like they're going to ask you a million and one questions. They're going to ask you for a list. They do checklists, all those things. Then you have your Easterners who are normally they're like macro thinkers. So they're thinking big picture. They're thinking of long-term goal. They're thinking about policy. And then you have your Southerners who are the folks that literally are like Southerners. They're hospitable. They're loving. They want to take their time and get consensus from everyone.
That don't work, y'all.
Before they do it. So these are compass points. Now what I offer people to think about is identify where you are, right? And then as a leader, and if we're talking about ministry, as a ministry leader, if you don't know where these people are, you're asking a northerner to create a list. So you're misplacing people, and that's why it's not working. So this is some of the things that I do. Then you're asking a southerner that I need something done quick. But you know, a person that identifies as a southerner, they're not going to do anything until they've asked all 50 people their opinion. So you can tell that correlates and translates to ministry as leaders, knowing where to place people. Knowing where to place people.
That is so important. No, but it's so important because people, and we're going to just talk about that, is people be like, oh, I'm called to do this. Well, and it's not that you're not called to do it. It's just that there still has to be some works that come with that. And a lot of people honestly want to be a leader. And, you know, I've done a lot of leadership development and things of that nature as well. And I tell people all of the time, you're not really a leader if the only way you can get things done is to just tell people what to do.
Right.
Then you're really not a leader. Leaders actually, they ignite fire and burn something in people. Like it's that, it really truly is. They like, I want to do good. I got to get it done. I want to learn more. And I think that's something that unfortunately a lot of ministries lack because they're giving people power who don't have the ability to be leaders. And I tell people all the time, I don't care what title you have. That doesn't mean you're a leader.
Yeah, right.
That just means you have a title. There's a lot of people that got titles. 45 had a title. He wasn't a leader. Well, he was a leader to, you know, to them. But just in general, like, you know, what was his leadership abilities? What was he able? So I say that to say, first of all, you guys, I'm telling you, and I didn't even know. See, this is why I love too when God connects stuff, because I don't be knowing stuff. But now that I know, let me put the plug in. If you are looking, especially now, because a lot of ministries are in transition, you need to connect with Leja. So I think even before you go back into the building, or even if you're in the building, to do some team building exercises, especially if you're virtually, because people don't feel connected. And so how are you, because I don't know if you're physically in a building, if you're doing remote work, like how are you, because I know you're doing it for work, you're also doing things for different ministries. How are you able to help people connect?
Right. So
how are you doing that now?
So the most recent thing, literally my curriculum, I revised it to also be remote. So I am able to do it virtually as well. And then, of course, as things seem to be getting somewhat better, if, you know, people would like to bring this over into their space, we'll talk about the number of individual I'll be able to do, but I am offering that option as well. But I have been doing it virtually, and it's been just as successful. A little different because, you know, sometimes you go to these sessions and they'll have you sitting there and lecturing. No.
You got breakout rooms.
Listen. No. So, and then in person, those who have experienced it, they know you'll sit for a moment, but we moving, we're running, it's fun. Training and development can be fun. Team building can be fun. Like, so it's a great experience. But it is even better experience, of course, when it's in person, because we're also, like I said, breaking barriers. We're sharing, we're being vulnerable. of course, building up to that space, but you're being vulnerable. You're going to learn things about people that you never even knew or you never even thought or fathomed
Wow.
about them. So listen, we'll be crying one minute, laughing the next minute. Okay? Running across the room the next. So it really is a great life experience.
Now, how are you now? Because of course, we mentioned earlier the pandemic. A lot of people are dealing with mental health,
Yes,
depression, PTSD, and I think I told people a couple of weeks ago because some people felt like, "Oh, we're out of 2020," and so now the best is yet to come. However, now there are people dealing with triggers.
yes.
Because this is exactly this is exactly 1 year where people were losing 5, 6, 7 family members a week.
Yeah.
And, now, of course, because people couldn't gather last year, they're gathering this year. It's a bunch of memorials. Like the memorial flyers to me now look like the rest in peace flyers from last year. And so how are you in your spaces of influence? Because you do a lot. You're in education, you're in the schools, you're in ministry, you're working in your community. How is you as a social work professional, like how are you helping people kind of navigate through that?
So one of the things that I have been doing is providing a lot of resources, and also connecting people. Connecting, like there's so many people that have come to me like, hey, do you know a counselor I can go to? So I've been like a bridge to them in that regard, but also myself, like making myself available to have conversations, making myself available, just simply checking in on people, asking them how you're doing, how are you navigating, and really paying attention to that. Like, all right, this person seems like they're having a hard time. I probably should push them to get additional supports in that way. And then in the community, doing outreach, still getting outside, providing the needs for the people, asking them, hey, what do you need?
Wow.
At one point I was making phone calls because we had like some vouchers, grocery vouchers. So I was calling my old students. I was calling their families like, hey, do you need anything? What do you need? Doing groceries, deliveries. So things of that nature. My support has been more, I guess, materialistic or tangible support during this time. But also I've been doing a lot of referrals to friends and counselors that I know. So that's kind of
no, but honestly, the tangibles are what people need. Like losing their jobs, can't get to a grocery store, or people, not having power for a period of time, losing what they did have. All of these other things, masks, trying to get masks. In the beginning, those things were scarce. You couldn't find a mask anywhere.
Hello, I forgot about. Yes, I couldn't. We did. My church, actually, we were able to get some masks from the city. And guess what? I was able to, listen, even the shelters, I was able to take those masks. I took them to the shelter. I got toothpaste, toothbrushes, all these things, and dropped it off to them. So that was something I was like, okay, it's needed. It is really needed during this time. So I was like, what do y'all need? I think that's the biggest part. Like we often, even as professionals or mental health professionals, we want to kind of, sometimes we could find ourselves pushing our own thoughts and agendas on people. Like, I think they look like they need this. Like, no, it's a simple question. What do you need? I tell people that all the time. I tell teachers all the time. They're like, well, this curriculum isn't working. I said, okay, ask the students what they would like to do. Ask them what they need. So that translates into all areas as well. So
wow. Well, first of all, see, you guys, this is why I said I wanted to have this conversation, because Leja is a perfect example of a Black and brown millennial woman who is just out there continuing the legacy and doing what's needed and providing to the community. And honestly, like I said, just doing that multi-generational piece of making sure that at the end of the day, she's touching and reaching who God has put in her reach. And I have to ask, like, where did this passion come from? Because it had to come from somewhere, because you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be picking up toothpaste and taking it to the shelter. Where did this passion for community engagement and servitude come from?
So I said earlier, I literally started community service when I was 3 years old. And that was because my great-grandparents, back then it was Guardian Fellowship Church, or Guardian Fellowship Outreach Center, which is now the church that my mom pastors and the church that I attend, Greater Fellowship Church. Right on the corner of South Road and Guy Abrua, it was a trailer right there. My great-grandparents served that community. They had a soup kitchen, they had a thrift shop, they had a pantry. They also would have like AA meetings there. Whatever that Southeast Jamaica Queens community needed, that's who they made themselves. That's who they were. Wow. So at 3 years old, when I wasn't like, I guess I wasn't, when I was in pre-K, right? I wasn't at school. I would go down there with my great-grandmother and help serve. So I would start, they used to have the little pantry cards. Each week was a different color. So I would punch the little hole in the card. So that was my first little job. And then as I got older, I moved to the soup kitchen, was rolling forks, knives, and spoons, placing them down, encountering all these people that would come, whether it be a homeless population, addiction population, people that was bus drivers who just was like, oh, I know Guardian, they always got food. They always got a line. And that's literally, my great-grandparents were the first examples, one of the first examples that I saw of social workers really serving and working in their community.
Wow.
So yeah, it literally started at the age of 3, and that was embedded in my mind. So as I grew older, I would always serve. My mom, I would always serve with her. She was intentional to take me every year, like to the shelters to drop off clothes. She was like, we gotta clean, we gotta go through stuff. We would drop stuff off. She would go and pray. So that was ministry to me. That was purpose to me. So that was what I knew literally all my life. Even in college, I started bringing my friends down with me for Thanksgiving to go to my church to feed.
Wow.
Friends that had never done any of that. So that literally was embedded. It really was. And then I had an opportunity in college to go to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina had happened. My dean, the one I told you about, I was the only freshman that she gave the opportunity. She was like, I see something in you. Wow. I know that you do a lot of community service. I'm going to send you to Baton Rouge for a month to serve. When I went out there, we served. I taught 4th graders who were displaced and they were left back.
Wow.
Because they were displaced. I taught them. So it literally is in my DNA. It's in my blood. It really is. And I was like, I'm going to live my life this way. And it's upholding my great-grandparents' legacy.
Wow.
My parents' legacy. My dad is also in the health profession. He was retired sergeant from NYPD, but now he teaches martial arts to youth. Has been for 20-something years. And I also do that with him. So
yeah, I heard you a black belt. Y'all better stop playing.
So it's literally in my DNA. And I'm just like, this is, me having a smile, me serving, that's ministry, that's purpose to me. Wow. Being kind. That's it. Like, so that's kind of where that passion comes from. Literally, it was all I knew. And I was taught, like, how you should live your life, you know?
But it's so awesome because you're saying at 3 years old, you literally are your great-grandparents' dream.
Yes.
You are literally there. You are really, truly a living legacy just by living out their dream, just by saying, you know what, we're going to teach and embed this in her and then take it through then to your mom. And now you are going to other places and you are taking what you learned. And that's why too, it's so important as parents. That's why number one, and thank God you don't have children now, but I know when you're ready to have children, because that's what was embedded in you, you're going to embed that into your children, which will then be your legacy. Exactly. And that's why it's so important as parents. That's why it's easy to say, oh, the millennials, they don't do this. And this is how they feel. And this is whatever. But what did the generations before do to prepare the foundation for the millennial generation? Like, were you out there serving and doing and moving? And that's not everybody's story, but what were you doing to plant seed into the millennial generation, so when they got to this place, they would be empowered to go and do the next? The one thing that you mentioned earlier on that I was totally impressed by is most of the Black Lives Matter protests were led by millennials.
Yes.
Most of them were led by millennials, organized by millennials. And because unfortunately, like we know there's like a gap in who, the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. That's pretty much, the baby boomers were still a little young. So it was the generation before that really truly led that charge. And then the baby boomers started benefiting from those laws and things of that nature. But then it's kind of like a dwindle away. And so now the fact that millennials are picking back up that baton and saying, you know what? We're still fighting for civil rights. Like, I'm going to be honest, I'm Generation X. I know a few people from my generation that I can name that are fighters of the fight, but it's not a lot. And I think it's because I know the way I grew up, it was kind of like, you free. Like, in so many words, like, you free, you got opportunity, you can go to college and all these other things, but not really giving me the baton to say, okay, now we have voting rights, we have this, but now we need to fight for equal pay. Now we need to fight for this. Like, there was not, and again, this is just my experience. Some people may have experienced it in their things, but it was never that we did this much. Now you guys do this much. So it literally feels like to me that the millennial generation, especially those of you who are very active and continue to be active and fighting for Black and brown people, it's like you had to reach all the way back to the 60s to grab a time. And now you're making up for all this lost time. So how does that feel? Because I already know there's a few people that you may could talk to in their 40s and 50s and even 60s about what happened during those times or what's happening. But if you ask, I'm sure, and this is just my opinion, it's not too many people in my generation who's actually been out there doing things.
Now I'm trying to think now,
like how many? And I don't think it, and like for me, when the pandemic hit, it's not that I didn't know that because I work in the workplace. I'm in HR. I know about microaggressions. I know about people being discriminated against because of their name. I know about you can't wear braids and all these other things. That I know about all of these things, but because they weren't on the forefront. And there weren't people like, we had the good hair, bad hair thing or whatever, and people trying to get laws in certain things. But now that it's on a national stage, I really had to sit and was like, wait a minute. Well, what happened here? Versus I'm talking to teenagers. That's Z. And they're like, oh yeah, let me tell you what happened because, I'm looking on their TikToks because y'all, I be on TikTok and they giving the history of HBCUs and all this other stuff. And I'm like, these are things that my generation, unless you literally was interested, we didn't get that information. And now it's like your generation and the generations behind are like, no, I'm Black and I'm proud. I want to know my history. You're not going to tell me what to do. Oh, if you don't want to pay me, you know what? Let me grab up my stuff and start my own business.
No, that's exactly how it is now.
Like, it's awesome.
I look at them like, y'all teach me so much. Like I did an event for them and I said, well, I had stuff to share, but I'm gonna sit back because y'all are teaching me right now. Like literally. I think one of the things, listen to you talk, I think one of the things that it sparked for me was this idea that us who have that influence as Black and brown people, we need to be intentional to like infiltrate these industries and systems for the next generation. I think that's something that's so important. Like, yes, continue to advance and go forward, but also let's not forget to get in these spaces so that we can educate those who are coming up and create access for them.
I'm glad you said that because I think my generation, it's funny because usually it's millennials are selfish. But I honestly believe, and again, this is my opinion, you ain't got to agree. I believe my generation, which is X, is really the selfish because it was let me get my degree, let me get educated, let me make it out the hood, and then I may come back and get some people. I may do some community service, give or take, whatever, but I made it out. And
Yeah.
so we're, and again, this may not be everybody's story, but like I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I purposely kind of stayed in the area because I felt like eventually I would go back and do something. Like, and I, that's kind of how I felt eventually. When truth be told, it should have been all the time.
Yeah.
Every time I gathered a degree or every time I got information or every time. And so that's one of the reasons why I started this platform, because I said, you know what? There's so much information that I have access to that my people don't.
Yeah.
And so, I can't physically go everywhere. My lifestyle doesn't call for it where I can go here, go here, go here, go here, here. So what has God given me access to that I need to give to other people?
Yes.
And that's why when I started this platform last year, I just started talking about, hey, listen, it's COVID. And as HR, this is what y'all need to know.
Right.
They're not telling you this. They're not telling you that. I said they lied to you.
Listen, please don't get me started on that because we'll be here another 30 minutes. Please.
But that's really how it started, because I felt, and I felt bad because I was like, I know all of this stuff, but I'm not sharing it with people. And the minute I started sharing it, that's where people started nicknaming me the people's HR. I still get inboxes, people like, how do I request a leave? Because they not telling me. And I'm walking people through the process, or they stressing me out and I need to figure out what to do. But I realized in that I had something to give back to people that I was holding for myself. And I think my holding had more to do with the fact of I didn't know there was a need.
Yeah.
And I just assumed that everybody had access.
Right.
And I think as Black and brown people, sometimes we assume that people have access to things. Exactly. And they really don't. Everyone doesn't have access to an education.
Right.
I don't care how you slice it or dice it. I don't care what financial aid is out there. I don't care whatever. Everyone just doesn't have that access.
Right. No,
and so I'm so glad that you are in the schools. You're teaching, you're showing, you're developing, you're empowering. What is your, well, first of all, I guess we could wait until it's Dr. Leja, whatever. Dr. Leja or whatever, because I know you're doing these things. I know of course, you work for the school system. You're your own business. You're doing ministry. You're doing all these other things. And as we start to wind down, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want it to be where when people says, you know what, Dr. Leja, and I'm not talking about dead, because the problem is we only celebrate people after they die.
Right.
We don't celebrate people while they're living. We don't celebrate their accomplishments.
Right.
We don't celebrate the lives that they touch. And that was one of the reasons why for the month of March, I said, I want to celebrate living legacies and encourage Black and brown women like myself, because at the end of the day, what you're doing now is what's impacting the future.
Yes.
Don't wait until a person dies. So what do you want, like, as you're walking things out? You'll be 30 this year. So you have a lot of life to live, and you've done so much already. Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
I definitely know. I've been thinking about this for a while now, like, especially someone who has their hands in so much, and God has gifted me to be able to do a lot. I definitely want to be known as a servant leader, a transformational leader, a philanthropist. That's literally something. I'm like, I really want to be so blessed that I just bless everyone.
Yeah.
That's literally, I want to be a philanthropist. I want to travel, the nations and be known to go and plant and build, whether that be schools, whether that be shelters,
Come
right?
on, the apostolic.
Well,
Come on,
yes,
apostolic.
yes. Listen, okay, there are so many apostles in the professional realm. So exactly,
They
exhibit.
sure are. They are. And that's where they're needed.
Yes, yes, yes. I really consider myself a builder. So my business is building with Leja. And I literally want to build, yes. I really want to build people. I want to build towns. I want to build communities. That's really, really the legacy. I want people to know, like, oh, that's Dr. Leja. Oh my gosh, she helped us do this, and this is the results of that. Community centers. Like, I know I have big, big dreams, but everything in me wants to just make sure that the next generation and that communities are able to thrive and grow and build. Especially those communities who are in poverty, right? I want them to know, like, you can come out of that. This is not the end for you. So yeah, that's some of the legacy. And then,
first of all, I'm excited just hearing about that, because that is truly, and y'all know sometimes I get a little churchy on here, but that is really truly what the kingdom of God is about. It's not just about building a church building.
Yes.
Because we're the church. So no matter where we go, we're supposed to be building. So we build in schools, we build in communities, we build in people. That's really what it's about. True evangelism builds people.
Yes.
It builds people, because the people are the church.
Right. And that's spiritually, right? But also that's financially. I'm teaching you about finances. I'm teaching about you're teaching them about the workforce. You're connecting resources. Like, we're resources for people.
Yes.
Right? We literally, our wealth of knowledge is a resource for people. Mm-hmm. And when we were talking earlier, just sharing about, like, because you've had access to it and you know it, you're like, oh, they must have access. Like, no, we are the access. We have to bridge that gap. So yes. That's literally that. And, I yesterday, and I talked a bit about, like, professional and what I want to do, but even, like, when I talk about, like, ministry, like, I want my ministry is to help people go through healing, whether that be mental, physical, psychological, all those things. Like, that's really a part of my legacy, building people holistically.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Now I know why God had, because and people who listen to me and listen to my stuff and read my things, they know that that's really truly my passion. So now I understand why the Lord had the connection, because people are holistic beings.
Yes.
And you have to heal the person holistically and not just talk at them. Yeah. Like, yes, God is good all of the time. And yes, he can do amazing things, but he is not going to bless your mess, which means if you don't know how to handle your finances, he can keep giving you a new job, but you won't still be broke. It's just what it is, because you're not a good steward.
No discipline.
He gave you. The Bible talks about that too. But the only thing people talk about is the blessing, the blessing, the blessing, the blessing, the blessing, but they don't teach you how to maintain the blessing. And that's why when I talk to people, I'm like, yeah, I can tell you what God said. And yeah, I can even give you this information. But my goal and my focus is to help you build strategies to implement what I now gave you. Yes. And so just to kind of hear, and again, we're in two totally different generations, but the Lord gave the same mandate.
Yes.
And that's just like him, to build bridges. So no matter where it goes, if you're truly inspiring and mentoring and moving things along, the vision that God gave you should carry on even when you're not here.
Yes.
And so I just want to close out by just saying, one, how important that it is to continue to build bridges with the generations, because honestly, we're the first of our kind to have so many generations alive in one. And like, we're in 2021 and there's still people who are in their 90s and 80s that are still here, and then all the way down to, I have 6 and an 8-year-old. It's so many generations. And because, again, we are Black and brown people, that's such a wealth of history and resilience. If we could really just truly bridge that gap and unite and be on one accord and not fight with each other and not devalue one generation, but really take the strengths of each generation. Because the one thing I admire about the older generations is their resilience.
Yeah.
And and I say this because it's like, now your generation has it to a degree, depending on here, because some of them, they just can't go through nothing. But the resilience in their faith in God and how they moved and how they operated, and just knowing, like, I tell people all the time, I laugh because I'm married, and there's some women, they married men who were not saved, and they would pray for 30 years for him to get saved. And I'll be like, he ain't saved yet. Like, I know that would be me. Like, listen, Lord, I could give you a year, maybe 2. But after that, I'm like, listen, you gotta come through us, because I'm not doing this. But I remember my grandmother prayed. It had to be at least 15 years for my grandfather to get saved, and he finally did. But it was the resilience and that faith in God that is necessary for us to learn from the older generations, for us to then take what I have as my generation to pass on to you, so you guys can then take it forward.
Right.
And so first of all, I have to say, I am so impressed. Like I tell you guys, I don't write questions. I don't talk to people beforehand. Even though I know Leja, I don't know her personally to be in her business every day and talk to her on the phone or anything like that. It's kind of like the Lord just drops people on me and he say, this is the person to ask. And so I am grateful, but I now understand. Because you are truly a millennial boss. Like, you are truly out here doing what God has called and purposed and assigned you to do. And you're doing it in confidence, and you're doing it with all intention to not only please God, but to really truly impact people. And so I'm just so proud. Look, now, y'all, because I'm gonna tell y'all this, which is only a few people, because that many people, it's only a few people who call me Big Sis. Only a few people. So when Leja said it, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But y'all know, we careful in this generation of who we claim. So we careful. So I'm not saying I was careful about her or anything of that nature. But what I'm saying is, I'm just so impressed. And I am so encouraged about what God is doing in your generation and what's to come, because I truly believe, and I've been saying it, and this is not my quote, I got this from Bishop Bernard Jordan, that 2021 is the year of the Black brown woman. This is our year. This is our year to shine. This is our year to move forward. This is our year to break barriers. This is our year to break ceilings. And I've been taking that with me. And I'm like, you know what, Lord, connect me.
That's confirmation.
Like women. I don't care what generation that it's, we going forward, whether you like it or not.
We're breaking through all those concrete ceilings, okay?
All of them.
What you just said is confirmation, because I'm literally doing research on black women breaking through concrete ceilings. So
I gotta
connect with you about that.
I got a doctor I need to connect you with, honey. She do all of this. Do all of this, honey. Her master's thesis was on. Yeah, she do all of this. I'm gonna have to connect y'all.
Please
and she a pastor, so she know Jesus too.
So. I'm excited. No, I need so.
Yeah, so she know Jesus too. But I just want to say, first of all, I am honored that you call me or consider me a big sister. I'm honored because of what God is doing in you and what he's placed in you and what he's called and assigned you to do. And I know you have discernment. I don't take that lightly.
Yes.
I don't take that lightly. Some of y'all run around here like sis this, sis that, or whatever.
No.
Like, what I do know about millennials is the fact that they're not connecting to nonsense. If they're about something,
right,
they're not connecting to nonsense.
No.
So I'm honored. I am completely honored that you would even see me that way, because then that also means too that what God has placed in me and what I desire to do for him is being exemplified in the earth. And so I'm just honored. So I'm going to let you close us out. Is there anything we missed? Anything? Say, you got to tell people how to connect with you, because y'all need her to come to your ministry, to come to your business, because I am telling you now, people, I don't care what nobody say. I don't care how much they love Jesus. Personalities conflict and people have a hard time working together. They only want to work with the people they like, but some of the people they like, it's not a good mix for them to work together. So I want you to tell everybody where to contact you, how to contact Building with Leja, all of that good stuff.
Yes. So for number one, if you're on social media, I have my Instagram and it's Building with Leja. I guess I could put it up there.
I'm putting it right there too.
Okay. Building with Leja. And you can also contact me via email. I wish I was logged on so I could just type it in. My email is Leja, Leja, Renee, Renee, the number 1 at gmail.com. So you can contact.
Okay, so spell it again.
Leja, Renee, Renee, the number 1 at gmail.com.
All right, I put that up as well. But I also want to make sure, again, you guys. Oh, thanks. Oh, great. It's posting everywhere. It went to YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. But again, you guys, connect with her. It is Building with Leja on Instagram. Leja is Leja on Instagram, or you can email at Leja Renee, number 1 at gmail.com. You guys really need to connect. I am telling y'all know I work in the workforce. I'm doing team building all the time.
Listen, right.
All the time. You need, I'm telling you, especially if you're a ministry, you need a team philosophy. You need a team strategy. So everybody know how to work. Right. Yeah, you need to know, everybody has to have the language. Yes. What is our team language? Yes. What do we, I'm telling you, there's a science to this stuff. It's not just, exactly. It's not just, oh, I'm going to put these people on a team and it's going to work. It doesn't. That's why these auxiliaries going crazy. People can't do what they need to do. That's why your elders board is fighting each other, because people, no matter what sphere they're in, need training and development. And I don't care what anybody says, especially in the ministry, all training ain't just spiritual.
No.
We need practical training and development. Invest in your leaders, invest in your people. I'm telling you, what you learn, you can take it everywhere. What you learn, you can take it everywhere. So, Leja, I just want to say thank you so much. This was a awesome conversation. Look, now I know exactly what you do. So if I don't feel like doing no team building at my job, I can hire a consultant Building by Leja to come do some team building with my people. Because I'm telling y'all, I'm HR. We do it all. We do psychology, social work, team
investigators.
Sometimes we don't want to do all that. We just want to bring somebody in who can play games and all the other stuff with them. Because even though I talk to y'all every week, I'm really truly an introvert. I kind of like chill to myself. I come out when I need to. I want to go back. Sometimes I don't want to do them bells and whistles and icebreakers.
Yeah.
I don't.
You got to build your energy, because we both in professions where we have to talk to people all day, every day. Sometimes we got to be like, let me prepare my heart and mind and spirit.
You're right about that. Like, I'm like, oh my God, let me get myself together. That's why I don't do too many Zooms back to back. I have to come back, then go back. All that other stuff. That's why, honestly, y'all, I only talk to y'all for about an hour on Mondays, because after that, I'm spent. I can't do it no. I'm spent. It's a wrap. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm over it.
Listen, if I don't answer your call, you know I've been talking all day. Okay? No, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Because I look up to you and the wonderful things you're doing. So I'm honored to actually be on this platform and be able to share and connect with you on a different level now. Because like you said, we see each other, but now we're able to connect on a different level. And I look forward to building, our relationship and networking.
I need your information, because I got a lot of HR people who gonna need some team building stuff. I'm telling you, we tired. Look, when I tell you we tired, because now they got us engulfed in diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what I'm engulfed in. So
I need to reach out to you for that too. So we'll talk.
Yes. So again, thank you guys all so much. I just want to let you guys know, next week, this week is Holy Week. I know everybody who listen ain't saved, but y'all know I serve Jesus. So this week is Holy Week, but I had this show scheduled. I am off next Monday. I will not be live next Monday. It is Easter Monday. I will not be live. It is spring break for my baby. So I'm going to chill out and spend time with them. I will be back on Monday, April 12th. As I tell you guys, I don't know what we're talking about then, because I wait for God to tell me what we're going to talk about. So when he tell me, I'm going to tell y'all. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, tag, like, share this with other people. Share it with millennials. Share it with every generation to let them know that we truly, truly, truly need each other, especially now. If we've never needed each other before, we definitely need each other now. And honestly, I do got to get with Leja, because I see us doing some generational things. What you call it? Yeah. All right now. I love you guys. Let me get off of here, because the Lord will start talking. I need to shut up. So I love you guys so much. Take care and have an awesome night. I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye.